Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is about to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you, but rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's suffering, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy.
Samuel Zwoymer, sometimes overlooked in lists of great modern missionaries, took the spirit of the preceding verse and made it flesh. Despite seeing only a few dozen Muslims come to Christ throughout his entire ministry, Zwoymer may well have been the greatest missionary the United States has ever sent to the Islamic world. He was a committed evangelist, a prolific author, a compelling public speaker, and a talented professor. His zeal and perseverance launched a modern missionary movement to the Arabs. The great historian La Tourette remarked about Zwoymer, "No one is more deserving of the title Apostle to Islam." These posthumous glories, however, were preceded by a life of suffering for the cause of Christ, a life that, when reflected upon, would lead Zwoymer to say,
The alpine climber who is trying to reach the summit can scarcely see his goal, except at certain fortunate moments. What he does see is the stony path which must be trodden, the rocks and precipices to be avoided, the unending slope that gets ever steeper. The evangelization of the Muslim world is not a phrase to be bandied about easily. It is a deep life purpose, a work of faith, a labor of love, and a patience of hope.
Samuel Marinus Zwoymer seemed destined to become a missionary. The 13th child of a pastor in the Reformed Church in America, Zwoymer would have an upbringing in the Christian faith. Indeed, his mother faithfully prayed that he would become a great missionary while he was still in the cradle. By the age of 5, Zwoymer was bilingual in English and Dutch, and he would subsequently acquire German in school. Zwoymer's linguistic acumen would serve him well through the course of his career as he traveled the bastions of Islam, India, the Middle East, China, and the Balkans. His call was received in a chapel service at Hope College. Robert Wilder, a worker in the student volunteer movement, used a map of India and a metronome as an object lesson. For every tick, he said, someone in the subcontinent died without hearing the gospel. This demonstration so affected Zwoymer that at the end of the message he rushed forward and committed to become a foreign missionary. With his typical enthusiasm, Zwoymer immediately began moving his life towards his new missionary commitment. While attending the Reformed Church in America's Seminary in New Brunswick, Zwoymer and fellow student James Cantine founded the Arabian Mission along with their Old Testament professor. To help pay bills, Zwoymer also assisted a New York City doctor, a skill that opened many doors in Arabia. The final component of all good ministerial educations is, of course, a wife. In 1896, he met and married Amy Wilkes, an Australian nurse with the Church Mission Society. Despite all of these blessings, Samuel Zwoymer had a difficult life. He traveled to Sana'a in Yemen, a place where no Westerner had ever gone. Problems there ranged from the annoying — Zwoymer was often unable to sleep because of the noisy nocturnal insects — to the life-threatening. On one occasion, a government official was prepared to execute him until a quick-thinking Bedouin guide swore an oath testifying that Zwoymer was neither an Englishman nor a government agent. Another time, he was forcibly detained while a group of Arabs debated the virtues of holding him for ransom. In 1933, he and a companion traveled by rail for hundreds of miles over mountainous terrain in China, only to discover on arrival that they had been sitting on cases of munitions and dynamite for the Chinese army. The most difficult trial for the Zwoymers, though, was the loss of both of their daughters to dysentery in 1904. Yet, despite the tragedy, their faith remained strong. The inscription on the tombstone read, "Worthy is the Lamb to receive riches." For Samuel Zwoymer, Islam was a spiritual problem. Though he loved Muslims and appreciated the insights of great Muslim thinkers like al-Ghazali, Islam remained a system that denied the core elements of Christianity. Thus, Zwimer felt that the greatest impact a missionary could have on the Muslim world was through the exchange and proliferation of ideas, especially in the written word. He believed that the Quran left room for dialogue. Armed with a conviction to never downplay the basic truths of Christianity, namely the Incarnation, the necessity of the atonement, and the glory of the cross, Zwimer moved his family to Cairo to direct the Nile Mission Press, an organization which printed and distributed Christian literature in Arabic. This location also granted Zwimer access to Al-Azhar University, the intellectual and theological stronghold of Islam, and a logical place to discuss ideas. The work was dangerous here, too. Personal correspondences of the Zwimers reveal that many Arab Christians laid down their lives to spread the literature, believing, as Charles Watson once said, no agency can penetrate Islam so deeply, abide so persistently, witness so daringly, and influence as irresistibly as the printed page. Samuel Zwimer knew that his ministry was just the opening foray into a massive spiritual war. His gentle approach to evangelism was counterbalanced by a sincere conviction that Islam was a tool of Satan that kept people from the truth of Christ. For this reason, Zwimer recruited not only local workers but also Americans. In addition to being an active missionary, he wrote over 50 books in English to encourage the Muslim missions movement. In 1911, he founded the journal Muslim World and remained its editor for 36 years. It was designed to give information on matters of Islamic lore at an academic level and also serve as a forum of Muslim missionary strategy. After his overseas service, Zwimer accepted a professorship at Princeton Theological Seminary. He ardently believed that a loving but bold presentation of the surpassing grandeur and beauty of Jesus would never alienate the Muslim heart, and he wanted to impart this message to a future generation of American missionaries. Samuel Zwimer saw little spiritual fruit within his lifetime. Despite some successes, the Muslim world he engaged remained largely resistant, even hostile. Yet by his death in 1952, a grieving colleague spoke for many when he said, "A missionary prince has fallen in our midst." Today's prevalent missionary focus on the Muslim world can be directly attributed to the ministry of Samuel Zwimer. And while honors paid to him are deserved, ultimately Zwimer desired that only Christ be exalted. Today, the insurmountable path that he once described still seems daunting, and the end often appears out of reach. But we recognize that the goal is worth our lives, that many Muslims may come to bend the knee to Christ.